All right, next fly on the list is going to be the classic and always a staple San Juan Worm. These are terrific wherever there are trout, wherever there is steelhead, and really what fish doesn't eat a worm? So let's dive into it, see how it's tied. All right, so keeping on the theme of just simple, effective flies that you can add to your toolkit and are great flies to start off with when you're learning to tie is the classic San Juan Worm. And we're gonna throw a little bit of a twist in here, show you a different way of doing it that adds some weight with a bead in the middle. However, feel free to just tie this the same way without the bead if you want an even simpler fly to tie. I don't wanna go so simple that you got bored here. So with that, for the hook, we're going to be using a Hanak 333 size 10 check nymph hook. Any curved hook will work, and really the curve doesn't matter in this fly. Use a straight nymph hook, it'll be fine. Generally speaking, you want to stick to a somewhat large hook, so I would call a 10 a large hook when we're talking trout flies versus like a 14, 16. And the reason for that is this is going to be a fair size fly. You know, that's a couple inches long. A bigger hook is not going to get in the way of how the fly presents to a fish. All that a smaller hook is going to do is limit your ability to hook fish because it is a smaller hook. It doesn't grab onto a fish's mouth all that well. So use a decently large hook for better hookups. And so yeah, this is a size 10. I'm also going to throw on a 5/32 of an inch tungsten bead as well. If you haven't used one of those before, it's got a hole that's a little bit smaller and a hole that's a little bit larger on opposite ends. The point of the hook is threaded through the smaller of the two, and then it just loops up to the eye like so. For thread, I'm going to be using a 6/0 red Veevus thread here. No sense in going too light with this. It's only a one material fly. A thicker, more forgiving thread is just fine. What I'm actually going to do on this fly, a little bit different than some others, is I'm going to start with the bead back on the bend of the hook, and I'm going to start my thread up at the eye, taking wraps rearward to lock it in. Tighten that up a little bit too. There we go. And then snip off my waist end of thread. I'm going to take my thread down to about the halfway mark on this hook, maybe just a little bit less than that. And then I'm going to slide that bead up against where my thread sits. Now from here, what I'm going to do is take my thread, I'm going to actually hop the bead. You do this with sort of a light wrap, not too much tension, otherwise it tends to slip, so that my thread is now behind the bead. So you'll see I've got a wrap of thread that just goes over the top of my bead. And now I'll make a few more wraps to hold it in place, go over once more, and then back once more, just to really lock that bead in place. You can see those thread wraps sitting nicely on top of the bead. So now I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to wrap down towards the back of this hook, all the way to the back here, like so. And San Juan worms, they're a simple fly, but they are easy to screw up if you don't get the right material. So this is ultra chenille. It is a very coarse chenille, and the important feature about it is it doesn't easily unravel. So what I mean by that is if I pull at the ends like fish would, these fibers don't come undone versus, I think I have, yes, some rayon chenille here, which if I pluck at the ends, you can see fibers actually start coming off of that and the whole worm would unravel. So make sure it is labeled as ultra chenille, and there are different sizes just based on the size of worm you want to create. We'll try a red one here. Pink is of course a great color, as are more muted sort of browns, very natural. And I'm just going to clip off a section, a couple inches long, and I'm going to place this so that it sits sort of in the middle of the hook, meaning that I've got an end that faces off the front and back here. Once I like where that's sitting, I'll come in and just hold that close to the shank with my non-dominant hand, come in, grab my bobbin and just put a soft wrap on top, and then tighten up with another 2 wraps, nice and tight in place at the very back here. Now it's very simple. All I'm going to do is just start spiraling my thread up this material, tweaking as I need to just to keep it straight and sitting on top of the hook. So I've made 3 or 4 wraps going up to the back of the bead now, binding that chenille down to the hook. And now again, I'm going to skip over the bead with my thread. So I'm in front of the bead now. I'll pull that chenille over the top and lock it down in front of the bead. So it's got this little hump back. And then I'm just going to, again, spiral my thread forward with maybe call it another 2 wraps of thread, like so. Pull the forward-facing chenille back, sneak my thread in front of it. Couple wraps for security there. And then throw on a whip finish. Pretty simple stuff. You can clip off your thread, and while the fly is pretty well good to fish as is, this chenille, it doesn't unravel easily by itself. You don't need to singe it, but singeing it does give it a nice little bit of a natural taper, so feel free if you want, just take a regular lighter and just very lightly wave that flame over the tip ends of it. Being careful, you can set it ablaze as well. You'll see if that comes through, it's got just ever so slightly a little bit of taper there at the end, and I'll do the same on the other end. You'll see it starts a little more square, and as we hit it with this lighter, just tapers off a little bit, like so. And then for a little added security, because this can be an insanely durable fly, is I will just put some glue on the thread wraps, because they're the only real vulnerable part of this fly. They are totally exposed on the underside of this hook. So I'm going to use a little bit of Solar as bone dry. You can use head cement or whatever you like. And I'm just going to flip this whole fly over in my rotary vise here and just very lightly apply a coat just to the thread wraps, trying not to get too much on the material itself. Like so, just the whole underbody. I'll hit it with my light. And at that point, that is a nearly indestructible fly. It's a really, really durable one. Terrific, just classic trout fly, very good steelhead fly. And this method of tying in the bead allows you to tie with a pretty large bead if you want to, if you need a big bomb of a fly for faster water, higher water conditions. So that is your San Juan worm.